Welcome to FedScoop TV. I'm Billy Mitchell. Today I'm here with Sean Morris, the Federal Human Capital Leader for Deloitte Consulting, LLP. How are you doing, Sean?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Billy.
It's fantastic to have you here today. We're at the Digital Nation Summit, sponsored by SAP, and we wanted to focus in on some of the digital issues kind of involving the federal government today. And wanted to start off right away kind of asking you about the progress or the success perhaps that federal agencies have made as of late around digitizing their enterprise. So let's just start with that. You know, what progress has been made?
So I think there has been progress. I think there's some bright spots in the federal industry. Before I sort of directly answer your question, though, I think every industry is in various evolutions for adapting to particularly digital transformations. And certainly the federal government is no different from that. Many people would suggest that it's far behind. There's actually some great examples of where it's using digital in its mission spaces in a fantastic way. But you know, generally what I would say is under the previous administration, President Obama's administration, they stood up a digital group which got lots of press. It was bringing people in from Silicon Valley, applying many of the best practices in the federal government. The new administration, President Trump's administration, is looking to scale that because it was relatively small scale previously. So I think there's some really positive elements that we're seeing across the federal space. You know, you'll get a lot of consultants coming in and they'll give you 15 steps to a digital maturity in an organization. What I would say is there's 3 or 4 key ones. Where we are right now in the federal government is sort of more of an automation, a very internal look at how they think about digital. I think the next stages, though, that we'll start to see and are seeing in small pockets in the federal space is around the employee. How do you engage the employee in the digital format that they're used to once they step outside the doors of the place that they work? The other is how do you integrate partners, public-private partnerships in a digital way. And then sort of the mecca from a government perspective is how do you actually use this digital revolution that we're all in the middle of right now to improve the experience of Americans, of taxpayers, whatever the mission is in the government. And I think we're not there yet in scale, but I very much anticipate getting there with our clients in the not too distant future.
Great. So you mentioned there's a couple specific examples perhaps that in pockets around the federal government, some people are doing well with digitizing their enterprise. So give us a couple if you have some.
Yeah, a couple from a federal perspective, we're seeing a lot of our clients start to use gamification as a way to actually interact with employees around technical training. And that in itself is a front end, a digital front end. But what we're seeing, the real digital element of this is a smart cognitive technology on the back end that will take all of the information and rather than stick it in a spreadsheet like our old learning management platforms, it actually real time says, you know, learner X got this wrong, which indicates that they didn't fully understand this aspect of it. We're going to route rounds in a smart way and sort of do the training from there. And so we're seeing a number of organizations do that. It's obviously very appealing for Generation X type individuals and Gen Y and soon to be Gen Z. We've sort of grown up with games and we're comfortable interacting in the use of them. Yeah. Another good one is the Office of Naval Research has come up with their version of Google Glasses, and they are piloting that now, we believe, in theater. Basically what that does is real-time feedback from headquarters to the warfighter in theater and potentially his or her individuals around them, around vitals and these types of things and feedback back and forth. That's going to change the game in theater. There's some really good examples in the state and local space. Utah has digitized over 1,100 transactions that were mainly paper-based previously. They've taken out $500 million a year in transaction costs. I've got some ones. I've got some great ones if you want more globally. Estonia is probably one of the most digitized agencies in the world, or countries in the world. Their key to success, by the way, is they have for individuals and companies an independent ID, which allows them to put information in once and only once. Smart cities is a real hot trend right now. Barcelona, Spain has actually run cable to their lampposts. Those posts now are able to provide information back to central organizations around weather, traffic congestion, et cetera, et cetera. So there's some really, really innovative things going on, both at the central government layer and at the state and local layer. And I think we do well when we look at what's going on in other countries, smaller countries, because sometimes, and this is absolutely the case in Estonia's case, they sort of leapfrog because they were so far behind coming out of the Soviet Union. They leapfrog different technologies that we have today that are sort of legacy technologies.
Sure. Focusing on that technology side of things, you mentioned some of the emerging technologies, things like, whether it be augmented reality with the stuff that the Naval Research Facility is doing, or things like that. What emerging technologies do you really see changing the game in terms of agencies in the federal government and their ability to digitize?
Yeah, so the number one has to be blockchain. That is really going to change almost any situation where we're trying to verify the identity of an individual, sets of individuals, an organization. And if you think about that in terms of a government mission, there's lots of those instances. And do it in a very secure environment, and obviously in a much more efficient environment than many of the legacy systems, in some instances, that have been around for 60 years almost these days. State of Delaware is actually probably on the cutting edge of this right now. A lot of companies rather choose to set up their legal operations in the state of Delaware. I believe that's for tax reasons, if I'm not mistaken. They are actually overwhelmed sometimes by the number of applications, and what they found is that they can't always give the customer service to those companies at the level that they would like, and so they're using blockchain as a way to improve their customer service and obviously the sensitivity with the data.
Okay, and then kind of finally, as government looks to obviously continue to progress along this line to digitization, there's going to be some challenges in the way. What do you think those are currently, and what's kind of could impede that progress going forward?
So it's the same in the federal government as it is in any organization, any industry, and that is, how do you take the most important asset that you have, which is your people, and how do you free them up to be a currency that flows across your organization to allow your organization to shift quickly? And why do I say that? It's really because individuals, are much more adaptive to technological change than organizations are. And so, commercial organizations are a little bit better than federal organizations, but the gap between any organization and an individual, as they're trying to keep up with this massive pace of change around technology, is really big. And so what we have to figure out is, how do we break down those barriers, those organizational barriers that exist today, and let people adapt to the change in a way that we still stay in compliance with the rules and regulations that we have, and all of those types of things. But once we rethink the organization, I think it will turn it on its head and allow people to truly move the organization along, rather than letting the organization be the inhibitor of change. Now, I'll give just one example. The most innovative organizations out there, I won't name them, but you can probably name them yourself, are the ones that are really thinking about their employees as customers, and so they're tipping the organization on its head, rather than a check-the-box structured approach to how you interact with an employee from the time that you're recruiting them to the time that they're an employee to the time that they retire. They're thinking about them in terms of the way that they would think about their customer, and how do they keep them engaged and happy, and those types of things. Because what happens when they do that is those people flourish, they stay longer, they flourish, and they bring their A game to their jobs on a regular basis, and in addition to that, the technology adoption that they are so good at.
Yeah, that's really interesting. All great points. Thanks so much for joining us,
Thanks
Sean.
for having me.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I'm Billy Mitchell with FedScoop TV. Thanks for watching.